stage, Sean said to chill time. On stage, Sean said to chill time. On stage, Sean said to chill time. On stage, Sean said to chill time. Time and chill.
Tonight we welcome Magic in the Other to the stage of the Phoenix Theater. This band was born out of the idea that it is in the unknown where the most potent ground lays for magic and discovery. Tonight we'll learn about their new album As It Starts to Fade, and later they'll perform a set of songs. Please welcome to the program, Magic in the Other.
Welcome.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Ezra, you are the main lyricist and lead vocalist for this project.
Mm-hmm.
And I know your backstory a bit, but I feel like your life history has had moments that sort of embody the spirit of this band. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think naturally it would, because this band is, the kind of the embodiment of everything I've done up to this point, and I have to offer musically as far as being a band leader and songwriter.
Is this whole idea of the unknown something that you kind of embrace now? Is that something that you've always had inside you, or is this sort of like a new thing?
I think it's something that I don't know if I would have articulated it as such, but I think all of us to some extent enjoy this element of the unknown, and that's kind of where the idea behind where the name Magic in the Other comes from, because it has to do with the magic that lies in the unplanned, the unknown, the other experience that we can't necessarily force to happen. It's going to happen if it happens, and we just have to be hopefully open to receiving that magic and those moments when they do. So that idea kind of informed the intention of this band, where the spaces that you can't quite control or predict are sometimes the most poignant times for magic and discovery. Yeah.
For some people, the unknown is terrifying, right?
For me too.
Okay, so you deviate then from
No,
this.
no. I mean,
Yeah.
I was going to say for us as a joke, but
maybe you're joking, but I think out of the three of us, I think you maybe I think you might be comforted the most by more of a sense of certainty at times.
Yeah,
and I think it probably grounds us in a way that's helpful.
Yeah. I mean, I think everyone has an element of both aspects, don't you think? So, I mean, and I do love being in the unknown, and I do love when amazing things happen out of like unplanned, things. But just as a flat question, I would probably say I get a little scared in that space sometimes.
Yeah. Well, okay. So the three of you have your varying positions on it. Are you more on the spectrum of, yes, I love it, I don't know what's going on, free falling?
One of my favorite things to do is to improvise and be lost and figure out a way to get out.
Yeah.
I mean, beautiful way to
Roger's
get out.
kind of so much on that unknown spectrum that it actually makes me uncomfortable sometimes. So
if you could give me an example of your most uncomfortable moment with Roger, I would love it.
Well,
remember that one gig?
Do you think Roger's on one end of the spectrum and you're in the middle and I'm on the other? You guys are. All three of us are improvised.
Yeah.
We like to improvise music to get together and with other people.
And I think it's a dynamic, and it's a dynamic thing. It's maybe not the same for every day or every
totally. I think the
moment
day affects it.
But we have a solid foundation, and then that gives you the confidence to go out on a limb and see what happens. And yeah, we try to make sure to do that in every performance. We try to make sure to do that to keep the music vital. And yeah, it's part of what makes the band not just static.
So the new album is called As It Starts to Fade. As what starts to fade?
Well, great question. That could be a lot of things. I kind of wanted to leave it somewhat ambiguous based on some of the lyrical themes, because I think it could take on different interpretations. For one, there's a theme about death and dying in the album, and particularly like looking at that as a well, there's a song called Not Afraid, which is about the looking at death and dying in a way that makes us want to live stronger and harder and not necessarily be afraid of death, but just the acknowledgement that everyone dies, we all die, everything is impermanent, everything will eventually die, and that doesn't have to be something we fear or get overly upset about or sad, but just the acceptance of that. So as it starts to fade, as life starts to fade, as there's a theme in the album about like kind of time and moments, and as moments start to fade and memories, as potentially our chances of living on the earth as humans start, that window sometimes seems like it's starting to fade, but also as with climate change and where we're at now. But then also there's there's also the acknowledgement that one's suffering at any moment could start to fade, and one's anger could start to fade, or one's sadness could fade. So it doesn't have to always be, it's not just a dark thing too. It's kind of acknowledging of it could be a light and joyful thing as well.
Transition.
Yeah.
Interesting. So it's not as any one particular thing starts to fade. It's the song, or rather, like the album has different songs.
Yeah.
And maybe it's this, like, because Not Afraid is a great example. Not Afraid is a great example of like what we were talking about earlier. The greatest unknown of all is death. And the way you talk about it in the song is you are not afraid of it. You sort of are like, all right, let's see what's next.
Yeah.
In Not Afraid, isn't the lyric as it starts? Isn't that the song?
Yeah.
With that
And
lyric
then there's that lyric as it starts to fade
in that song.
Yeah.
Which you guys thought was too dark, I was told. I thought it was a little too dire sounding.
Does that make the cut?
I know you did it first, I think. Your initial impression, I think you said that.
I feel like, did my mom say something? Like maybe she was like, I'm not sure about that one, but I think she came around and likes it. It's funny the people's reaction to that one when they realize what we're singing. We all die. We all die, yo. But it's people sometimes are like, yeah, and they like, because it's kind of like it's set to like a dancier kind of groove. So it's a song you would typically kind of dance to.
It's kind of anthemic, but not the usual content that you would expect.
It's like celebrational sounding,
right?
Celebratory. So yeah, when people are like partying to the song, they're like, oh wait, we all die, like, but some people just get into it, and it's true, and it's. Yeah,
but that's kind of the intention of it. It's like it can be something we dance about. It doesn't have to be something we
mourn or fear.
Yeah, not that you shouldn't mourn death or loss, but as just a concept in the acceptance that it happens in life. It doesn't have to be a constant source of fear.
Which I think culturally can be a little jarring for people because it's handled different ways throughout the world, and it feels like in ours, it's really not something to celebrate.
It's not even dark. Something to people want to like even talk about or think about much. I think it's pretty taboo in our society.
We're less of a sort of North American band in that sense. I think we're
world music.
Yeah. A little more Hindu.
Yeah.
Those elements where death is a little bit just a transition. So that's what we're marketing to.
So this band has one other album. I want to talk a lot about this new album, but you have an album you put out in 2018, What We Know Is Possible.
Yes.
Thematically similar to the new album, or were you in a much different place at that time? So does it look like a much different album?
I think thematically, yeah. I think it's different. There's there's fewer songs with lyrics. So there's maybe less themes overall in the album, but there's definitely overlap. One song the first song of the album, How Is This All Ending, was kind of more stream of consciousness, and that deals with, I wrote it at the time a few years ago. It was like a particularly dark time in our nation's, news cycle moment, where we had just had the Las Vegas shooting, that horrific shooting, that mass shooting in Las Vegas, and Hurricane Maria had just devastated Puerto Rico, and it just seemed like every day there was just some other tragedy. And also Tom Petty died around that time, which isn't obviously as tragic, but it was just, another loss. And but then I remember feeling at the time that even though there was all this suffering going on, not in my immediate world, but in the greater world, I was just feeling a lot of gratitude for my own blessings, my own family, and how grateful and lucky I was to have my family and like people that I could play music to and for and with, and a community like that, and just the community I live in and the kids around, and just feeling gratitude and blessed amongst this intense suffering around the world, which was, and just kind of trying to hold space for all that. And then in the middle of that, I was writing that song. I wasn't quite finished, but I live in Sonoma County, where we are now, and in Pengrove, and we had the fires that happened a couple years ago that devastated the Santa Rosa area, and I had to evacuate where I lived, and fortunately we were fine. Everyone was fine, but not, as a lot of people weren't as lucky. Some people lost their lives. Some people lost everything. It's a really sad time for this, part of the state. But then again, I just kind of was feeling like it was the day after the fire. My family was safe. We were with friends in the South Bay, and I was like, man, there's still all this suffering going on. Somehow I'm grateful to be alive and well, and it's just having these paradoxical feelings of acknowledging this compassion and suffering for others, but also just feeling really grateful and blessed. And so that's one of the songs.
So the album was produced in a kind of a challenging period. I mean, honestly, right?
Yeah. And also, I mean, I don't know if you...
Yeah, well, doubly so, because right the week before we started to track the album, my father died unexpectedly, and it was kind of like, I think we were at there was a lot to process, but I had to kind of compartmentalize a lot of stuff just to get through that. And I think we still had like some amazing performances and a really good experience in the studio, but it definitely felt like I was just skating across the surface of reality, to be honest.
I bet when it all got over with, you could like get your head up.
Yeah.
I bet there was this sort of like it was waiting for you.
Yeah, I was kind of shelved for a second there. And then, I mean, and I know that's part of the experience of the album for me, and so it's different for everyone. Not just like as it starts to fade, everybody's going to read different stuff into that. But, we all bring our own triumphs and traumas into the experience and try to use that to, make the music better or more complex or more human or whatever.
Yeah, gratitude is also a recurring theme in the new record too, right?
Sure. Yeah, it is.
What I thought was interesting that you wrote to me is like you've worked a lot in your life, and maybe we all do this, but you are the one who has wrote a lot of this album about like reframing things and like reordering your thoughts.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious, like, is this something that like a moment or a collection of moments happened in your life and you just got better at it because out of necessity, out of survival? Or again, is this something that you feel like you've just been able to do just naturally since you were young?
No, I don't think it's something I've naturally been able to do. I mean, I think it's definitely been inspired by learning about mindfulness and meditation and something that I've needed to work on as a response to my own suffering, or my own dissatisfaction. And, because I don't particularly enjoy those feelings, as most people don't, but they're inevitable. But, for instance, I try to make it, I try to have some gratitude practice in my life. I have a meditation practice. It's not very advanced at all, but it's something I think that helps. I also just have some simple, exercises when I go to bed, right before when I lie down in bed at night before I read and then fall asleep a minute later. I try to think about 3 things I'm grateful for every night. And then the same thing right when I open my eyes in the morning before I move from bed. I just try to do that. And it's because as we all know, it's so easy, no matter all the external circumstances in our life. I feel like all of us could constantly just look. I think our human brains are more. I think there's actually studies on this, that they're more conditioned to look for what's wrong, and look for what to be dissatisfied about. That somehow adds more weight to everything that's good about our lives and everything we can appreciate. So I think it can be really valuable for people to be really intentional to try to think, to just count their blessings and be grateful and really spend time embodying those feelings. And I think that'll carry over in ways that are helpful. And Put a Smile in Your Mind, which is a song on As It Starts to Fade, that is kind of a playful version of that concept. Actually, full disclosure, I actually ripped that line off from a meditation app I use, Sam Harris, Waking Up meditation app. And one day he was talking about you should put a smile in your mind. And I actually, I wrote everything else, but I did rip that concept off from him. I emailed him the song. I don't know if he listened to it.
Really?
Yeah.
Awesome.
But yeah, so gratitude practices.
And Irving Berlin actually came up with count my blessings instead of sheep. Then I go to sleep counting my blessings.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
It's White Christmas.
Yeah.
It's one of my
Yeah.
favorite tunes. Yeah.
What about Put On a Happy Face? That's an old song,
That's
too.
a great tune. That's
That's not Irving Berlin.
Bye Bye Birdie, isn't it?
Yeah, maybe.
Put on a happy face.
Yeah.
I played Conrad Birdie in 5th grade. Just
perfect.
tangent. Love that.
Yeah.
So one thing that to kind of pile on that is yes, bad things happen. You get stressed. This is why you kind of trying to build in these sort of structures so you cannot get too down when it gets kind of dark. But you've all had a level of success musically, which is very interesting. 2 of you play with ALO.
Yeah, Steve and I. Well, Steve's was a co-founder of that band for 20, 30 years. And
Yeah.
I've just been hanging out the last couple of years.
Yeah, we picked up Ezra, our drummer. We're a little like Spinal Tap. We've had many drummers.
Yeah.
And the 3 of us, minus the drummer seat, ALO's been together since we went to junior high school together and started the band when we were 13. Went through college together, moved to San Francisco together. We had all these different drummers, and our last drummer we had for a long time, but he had to kind of take a back seat to take some time with his daughter and to be a little more family oriented. And so he couldn't do much touring. So me and Ezra and Roger were already playing together. And I'd played with Ezra here and there at Terrapin Crossroads and stuff, and Lebo. And so, when the conversation came up, we should get a drummer. Who should we get? And I was like, well, Ezra would be pretty sweet. That would give him and me more time to play together. Maybe Magic and the Other would get better because of it. But yeah.
And ALO is a band that's had a lot of success. You guys play around, and people are very aware of it. You do very well.
Yeah, we've sort of persevered.
Yeah. And you've one of you's played with Phil Lesh as well.
Yeah,
you have.
Yeah, I have.
Ezra.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I remember Ezra at Terrapin Crossroads because he would. Me and Ezra would play a lot in the bar where they kind of mix up musicians and stuff, and it's like free music in the bar every night, basically. There, it's crazy. But I remember seeing you, Ezra, and you had that song, "A Man
Without a Band."
A Man Without a Band, and it was a whole epic tale,
a whole tearjerker,
and
is this a autobiographical?
Yeah,
song?
It was an autobiography. It was tongue in cheek. It was like
funny.
It was funny, but also sad, depending on what your frame was for it. It was, but it was exaggerated. But
so I sensed Ezra had a longing to have a band or be in a band or lead a band.
Yeah, the longing was real. I didn't, but the thing is that at that time, I didn't. It hadn't occurred to me that I could lead a band, which is why it took so long. I always thought I had to join up with a band that already existed, or even just like meet another person that was the instrumentalist and songwriter that I could support and still be creative with and integral to that process. But I didn't know that I had the capacity to write music that I would want to play in a band, let alone lead the charge and do all that. And then around 2016, I was at a little bit of a low point, career-wise. Things had been good, and then things kind of got a little not as great, and I was feeling a little impatient or just a little down on things. And then, literally, it was with a conversation with someone who just kind of put that idea into my head that you could do this, and it was just really like a moment, a light bulb going off, and I was like, yeah, I guess I could just, I know a ton of musicians. I could just call up people I like to play with and book a gig and just see what happens. And then I was like, well, okay, I can do that, but I don't want to play covers. I don't want to start a cover band, so I guess I better write some original music. So I got to work and started.
Would you say it was self-doubt that stopped you from doing it, or just you just didn't have the idea in your head that it was a possibility? Yeah,
I don't think it was doubt, because I'm pretty. I feel like I'm not that down. Sometimes we all get down on ourselves, but I feel like I'm not that down on myself most of the time. And I don't think it was self-doubt. I think it just hadn't occurred to me. Because I guess I wasn't that prolific of a songwriter. I wrote songs, but they were always kind of folksier stuff that I'd write songs for like my friends and but not necessarily the kind of stuff that I'd want to, like serious music that I'd want to bring to a band. And I was always just the drummer. I was always the sideman.
My understanding was that you were doing fairly well. Like, you were getting shows, you were able to do things.
I was making a living.
People were paying you money
to
play music, which at a certain point was the whole idea of this thing.
Yeah.
And then I wonder, like, with the content of these songs, like, was there stuff inside you felt you needed to share with people? Or is it just
clearly. There was. I had the stuff I write about was inside me for sure.
Do you have children?
I have one. I have a 5-year-old son. Yeah,
5-year-old son. And of course, which of these moments was a song that was written from the perspective of a parent?
Yeah. It's kind of written. It starts out, the lover's sweet ignorance of a time without hindrance, before the beautiful child came with all its heartache and its bliss. And, I'm sure Roger can relate to this as well as a father of 2, but, when you're young and in love and have a partner and you don't have children, and Steve this is his whole reality, so he doesn't know anything else. But, but I think there's an ignorance of just how easy life is, particularly about like the constraints on your time, and just that freedom that I think when you have a children or a child, it's your time just is so much more accounted for. There's not really any downtime. There's either so yeah, that and it goes on, and there's a little arc to that song, but that it's kind of inspired.
What do you mean there's no downtime?
Well, it's like how like you can decide what you want to do in the mornings.
Oh yeah, totally, yeah.
Did parenthood shift anything in you as an artist, would you say?
Yeah, I think it did. I mean, it shifted me. It's hard to imagine my life without being a parent, although I do often fantasize about it. As much as I love my son and my family. Well, time is precious, and I think it. And honestly, I think it puts it affects the trajectory of our band in real ways, You
just wonder if this band would have founded if not for the presence of the child in your life.
That's a nice spin.
I hadn't thought of it like that, but you're right. I think as I was saying, as the mind sometimes focuses on the limitations, I think sometimes I think of it as, if we weren't so old and Roger and I didn't have kids, we could really go out and tour like we would have in our 20s and all this stuff, and and could be further along by now. And I think sometimes I focus on those limitations when, perhaps this band wouldn't exist without that. The birth of my child. I like that. I'll have to think about that more.
Which is, the birth of the child in itself is magic, right?
Absolutely.
And for you, like magic, would you consider like probably looking up to Phil Lesh as a child, or at least being aware of his band, and then meeting this man, and then this man being like, "Hey, why don't you play with me?" That seems pretty magical to me.
Yeah, I think that's a great example of something that. I grew up. My mom is and was a huge Grateful Dead fan, and I grew up with that music. And by the time I was in high school, I was definitely a fan in my own right. And I could have never, being a 15-year-old kid listening to that music, I could have never imagined that I'd have a few years where I would be playing regularly with Phil Lesh and friends, saw them in college, and now like all those guys are my colleagues, and it's bizarre, but that's a great example, so I guess it just goes to show a lot is possible in this life, and we can create pretty extraordinary things with our intentions and energy.
100%.
And hard work.
Is imagination connected to magic? Like, is there a similar root there?
Yeah, don't you think? Well, first off, yes, in my mind.
Yeah.
I'm afraid to put together a story, because once I do, those creatures are alive. Those characters are alive, and will continue on.
Yeah.
With or without me.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Imagination, magic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think because imagination is something inside of you that dares to dream, or dares to think about a world where something that seems impossible could happen.
Yeah.
And usually I find, I don't know if you guys agree, people who are afraid of that, or who are constantly focusing on, no, this can't happen, no, it will not happen, well, it tends to not happen.
Yeah.
So it's like the power of believing is a huge thing, I think.
Yeah.
There's no way to quantify it.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, like you said, I couldn't have imagined that happening, but
then again,
you must, yeah.
I did at a certain point, I mean, around 2013, I was like, hey, there's this whole scene going on in San Rafael there. I better
it's accessible.
Find
it's
out
possible,
about this,
yeah.
and then definitely willed that into being.
But when you said that just now, you had a little laugh afterwards, and I was thinking right as you said, like, I couldn't have imagined. I was like, that usually is the thing that describes a magical moment. When you like are thinking of something, and as you're recalling it, you can't do anything but just kind of chuckle to yourself.
Yeah, like I can't believe that happened. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you're a great example too, right? I mean, you said ALO's been a band since you were how old?
Yeah, 13. I wouldn't have imagined we'd be a band still.
Yeah, and not only just a band. There's a lot of bands.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
a band that the people know and that people care about.
Actually, I doubt that. I watch kids down here forming bands all the time, starting at about 13 or 14, and they're absolutely certain that they're going to be playing together 20 years from now.
Right.
So
I knew I wanted to be a musician, and I think the other guys did too. Yeah. So we imagined being musicians, and we just sort of kept rolling with being together as a band. We imagined being famous musicians. Actually, we actually imagined being a famous band.
Did you imagine being more famous than you are?
I imagine because back in like that time, like it was like the early 90s, I imagined that we would make a record and be on MTV. But I also imagined I would be on the radio, and I also imagined my record would be in record stores.
Yes,
which those things happen.
And those things happen.
Yeah, and that's the
MTV
magic
burned out before I could get on.
Faith, you guys were well, and that gets back to another too stupid to know you can't.
Yeah,
it's really important to be stupid enough to think you can achieve.
I agree. I think there's a certain naivety that is necessary to do what we do.
Yeah,
because I think if you're really like a pragmatic person, there's no way you'd be doing this because it's insane. It's absolutely insane to try to do this. So.
Well, and how many people have you have tried to talk you out of it too? You know what I mean? When you're growing up and all that. Just who don't understand because it seems insane to them.
Even worried parents.
Absolutely. That was the primary example I was thinking of. It's the classic thing. Well, you know who, look, this is just an easy one. Thank you. You know who wouldn't have tried to talk you out of it is your grandfather.
Yeah, that's true. Yes.
Yeah. Can we get Stan? Yes, Mr. Lipp, Stan Lipp.
Yeah.
Can we get like a brief summary of this man? Because I feel like this man is like a role model for you.
Yeah. Where did you hear about this? Did I write about this, or
it's hard to say
it's
where information comes from.
Okay.
Jim is good.
Recall. Yeah, my grandpa was amazing. He passed away a couple years ago, Stan Lipp, but he, for one, he was just such a kind and patient and wise person. I really I spent every Tuesday with those grandparents, May and Stan, growing up, going to dinner at their house just across the woods from my house in Massachusetts. And when I was really young, there was this path that probably was like a quarter mile through the woods to get from my parents' neighborhood to theirs, and my mom would stand on one end and blow a whistle to signal to my grandma that I was coming, and then 5 or 10 minutes later, my grandma would blow the whistle back to signal that she received me, and so I got to spend a lot of time with them growing up. But my grandfather was a talk show radio host on WBSM in New Bedford, Mass, and I don't remember the name of his program. I think it was something like On Air with Stan Lipp or something like that. And he would, I never really listened to much of his shows. But I think every morning for a couple hours he would kind of discuss the local politics and national politics, and people would call in and he would kind of moderate the conversation, and the mayor would come on once a week, and so he had decades as a radio following.
The show was called Open Line.
Open Line.
And he was the host from 1964 to 2001.
Wow.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah.
It's a run.
And then so that was an impressive career, and then besides that, he was also a cantor in a synagogue, which is the clergy that the rabbi kind of leads the congregation in the ceremony, and the cantor leads the congregation in song. So he was responsible for leading all the songs, and he had this amazing rich baritone, deep baritone voice. And so sometime in the I think in the mid or late 60s, so he had this Worlds in his synagogue, and he'd do once a week, Friday night services, and then he'd have the online listeners and fans, and he also his radio fans they were like, okay, you're a singer, like we gotta hear your voice, because you don't sing on the radio, so will you make a record? So as he's told me, he just hired a piano trio, and one night in the studio went in, and they spent all night, and they recorded about 10 standards, and there's a couple tunes from West Side Story and That Lucky Old Sun and Fools Rush In, and then he put out the album, and he called it Lipp by Request, since he was requested to make it. Stan Lipp, Lipp, and it's a great record.
That's an old one, right?
I think it's 60.
I've got my eyes on it. I've seen
68. I'm not sure.
I've seen it on eBay and stuff.
Yeah,
I want to get it.
Yeah, you should. It's good.
So there's a guy who would have never tried to talk you out of doing this.
No, nor did he. And he got to see a lot of me flourish as a musician throughout his life. He was with us until just a couple of years ago. So,
maybe this is a stretch. Cut it if it's no good. But as a parent now, do you feel influenced by him at all?
By my grandfather?
Yeah. Because he seems just like this singularly important individual in your creative development. And you can't tell your story without talking about your creative side. And it just seems like he was somebody whose every aspect of your life has probably been touched by this guy.
Yeah, I'm sure. Just as it has been significantly by my parents and other grandparents and people in my life, but yeah, I think with my grandfather, just his disposition, he just had a really kind and patient disposition, really thoughtful. He wasn't quick to right now we live in a media climate where everything is so reactive and combative and quick to jump to picking sides or even just everyone's so right about their positions, and he just always struck me as somebody who was a little more patient and thoughtful and open-minded. So that's stuck with me. And actually I got to and I can't help but think that I also, I have a podcast, and I can't help but think that he influenced that. And actually I did, not too long, a few months before he passed away, I did sit down at Thanksgiving and did a couple hours where I interviewed him, which was really cool. And at some point I'd like to edit that together and get it out into the world. You
have a podcast. And this is uniquely interesting to us as people who have a podcast ourselves. You much like us do interview musicians.
I do.
You wonder if there'd be a podcast if not for the child.
It's really true.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know. There's something to be said about that. Why? I look at this. You obviously are a motivated guy who likes to put things into the world.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that this last few years for you there's been this groundswell of a desire to be this is a thing that I want to do, that I want to have my stamp on it and I want to put out there. Obviously Magic and the Other is going to be more interesting because that's your art.
Yeah.
This is you, whereas the podcast is other people's, but you're facilitating.
Yeah. It. And I really appreciate, because people talk to me about the podcast, and it seems like it offers a lot of value for people that listen. Yeah. So I appreciate that feedback, and that in itself, helps me get motivation.
Do you feel like you are now where you want to be in terms of all the creative projects you have, or do you feel like you're kind of desiring for more? You've added 2 in the last few years. It just from afar when I had
3 really when you think about ALO too.
Oh, that started in the last
2.5.
It started after Magic and the Other.
2 years ago, maybe this
this coming up winter will be my third tour de more with the band. So,
so you really hit the reset button like 4 or 5 years ago.
I did about 3 years ago, I'd say. Yeah.
Or was it the turbo button?
That's right. Well, time is finite.
Yeah.
As it starts to fade.
Yeah. It's true.
We got to get going. We got to get some stuff going.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like it's interesting because it seems like when people do have kids and they get older, they tend to start fewer projects.
Right.
And here you are. You have this just energy inside you to get stuff out in the world.
And also just to paint a even more accurate picture, I also regularly, still do freelance drum work. I, do studio work, and I play. I'm still active in the kind of Bay Area jam band scene, playing, at Terrapin Crossroads or with Stu Allen and other projects and filling in. So, yeah, I do have a lot going on. I don't necessarily want to add any big other musical or creative projects at the moment, but certainly I would love to continue the momentum with all of them and have them grow and reach new audiences and keep making everything better. And
cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. It's a joy to get you guys on the show. We had Graham of Whisker Man and his whole band last week, and I know that you've had some overlap with him creatively. Mm-hmm. And so it's just kind of cool, and maybe you even more than anybody would recognize how cool this is, that you document these people who are creating things and are doing things. And you've had us 24 some odd episodes on your show, I think. And we've done a bunch ourselves, and it's been great to have you on because I've seen this band play throughout the Bay Area. I haven't seen them personally, but I've seen your name for a long time. So to finally get you on here feels very good.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having us.
It's a pleasure.
Guys.
Thank you so much for having us and hosting this a whole multimedia extravaganza.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
And speaking of which, in just a moment, you will be performing these songs.
Yes.
Magic and the Other is going to play a set of music up next. Thanks again, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Scattered snow in the breeze, starstruck droplets of winter on the ground. Make no sound, look around, it's all so magnificent. Summer mountain town hike, the worst day they never imagined. Shocks of life, gripped her tight. Even love could not save their daughter, 'cause lightning's hotter than the sun. And it could easily extinguish light, a wayward weapon from above. One little shot left her lifeless, drained and stunned, ending all joy, ending all strife. But it could never burn out our love. Generations bereaved, joined together for solace. Stars hung low above the snow. She left her glow, it's all too conspicuous. And the ripple of tears expanded and tightened our kinship. Beautiful, irrefutable, on our own poetic continuous. 'Cause lightning's hotter than the sun, and it could easily extinguish life, a wayward weapon from above. One little shot left us lifeless, drained and stunned, ending all joy, ending all strife. But it could never burn out our love.
From these wounds we weaved our tender roots, tended our fears and shared our attributes. We tossed our tears while tapping maple shoots. Whoa, kicked off those snowy boots. When the worst drops, we adapt and grow. The weak but never comprehend these woes. We can dance amongst the scattered snow. Whoa, turn up that radio. From these wounds we weaved our tender roots, tended our fears and shared our attributes. We tossed our tears while tapping maple shoots. Whoa, kicked off those snowy boots. When the worst drops, we adapt and grow. Though we may never comprehend these woes, we can dance amongst the scattered snow. Whoa, turn up that radio. Lightning may be hotter than the sun, but it could never burn out our love. Lightning may be hotter than the sun, but it could never burn out our love. Our tender roots, tended our fears and shared our attributes. We tossed our tears while tapping maple shoots. Whoa, kicked off those snowy boots. When the worst drops, we adapt and grow. Though we may never comprehend these woes, we can dance amongst the scattered snow. Whoa, turn up that radio. Lightning may be hotter than the sun, though it can never burn out our love. Lightning may be hotter than the sun, but it could never burn out our love. Civilization ends our lives between the threads. How focused is your land? Stunned outside your father's lawn. Look, it is not all forgone. We cycle on and on. The queen was once upon certain phenomenon. I see your face, a lovely place. I see your face as it starts to fade. I see your face, a lovely place. I see your face, you are not afraid. We're going, who can say? Spin together, wash away. We must all go, oh well. The only sure intel, eternal carousel. stop the hurricane. I see your face, a lovely place. I see your face as it starts to fade. I see your face, a lovely place. I see your face, you are not afraid. We all die young. We all will die young. We all die young. We all will die young. I see your face, a lovely place. I see your face as it starts to fade, as it starts to fade, as it starts to fade, as it starts to fade.
Separate presence beckon brokenness. Opposite futures pondered, one will be. How would this be different? Possible morning follows hopelessness. Separate presence beckon brokenness. Opposite futures pondered, one will be. How would this be different?
The air gets to your brain,
morning follows hopelessness,
consuming everyone, getting harder to maintain.
Futures pondered, one will be.
Invoking hardship triggers worry. The air gets to your brain,
morning follows hopelessness,
consuming everyone, getting harder to maintain.
Futures pondered, one will be.
Invoking hardship triggers worry. The air gets to your brain, consuming everyone, getting harder to maintain. Invoking hardship triggers worry, but be patient, no need to hurry. What once was urgent, later is blurry. Try not to strain. We all die, oh. We all will die, oh. We all die, oh. We all will die, oh. We all die, oh. We all will die, oh. Ow! Woo, woo, woo. Take a look, pick up, ow! Pick it up, pick it up, pick up, look, look. Get up, look, look, look. Bum, bum, go, de, go, de. Ow! There was a time when it looked like the end game. Soldiers rolled through the streets and children cried as their hunger just would not subside. Broken and bent, all our dreams were abandoned in impossible climbing. We had believed we had run out of time. See me floating through the sky. Maybe I can see us down there. See a world where we all try to reconcile that which divides us. There was a time when it looked like the end game, but we cast off the system, self-imposed by our fears. Finally seen what's clear. Soldiers dismantled their guns in spite of their orders, fully seeing their threat was fabricated by lies and created by borders. I reached out my hand, you received it with warmth and impeccable understanding. We could begin to see what it's like to be free. And if it's love that you are, and you are, and you are, and you are, I'll leave a light in my window. And if it's love that you are, and you are, and you are, and you are, you'll find a light in my window. And if it's love that you are, and you are, and you are, and you are, I'll leave a light in my window. And if it's love that you are, and you are, and you are, and you are, you'll find a light in my window. And if it's love that you are, and you are, and you are, and you are, I'll leave a light in my window. And if it's love that you are, and you are, and you are, and you are, find a light in my window, light in my window, light in my window. You are, and you can't seem to find a path to your heart. Think you've run out of time, or you don't trust your vision. Think it ain't worth the dime. Don't know where to begin in a possible climb. Well, you can look in my eyes. I'm sure you will see that this all happened before, and it happened to me. We're an infinite light stream colliding with force, imperfect and messy, but never off course. The grief and the sorrow, the loss and the pain, all blended together, washes out in the rain. We will never regain what we lost. I'll leave a light in my window. Grab your boat, cast your sails, we'll set out for the sea. One of the last places where we can still truly feel free. If I was a lighthouse and you were a light, then let the waves crash down on us impeccably bright. Whoa, 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 whoa. whoa, 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 whoa. Called me up again and again, but pretty early on I could see that we wouldn't be friends, no. I'm standing here now listening to your point of view. I'm not sure what you've been hearing, 'cause I know my song is true. I'm not gonna worry about you no more. Not gonna worry about you. Not gonna worry about you. Not gonna worry about you. I still got this restless feeling. Questions linger incomplete. And these boots of Spanish leather are now positively 4th Street. I've toiled with your recklessness, and I'm ready for a break. Whatever did you want me for? Are you really this opaque? 'Cause with a little love, maybe we can write our own. Add a little forgiveness to our song. You may be crazy, I may be proud. Still transformation is allowed. Not gonna worry about you no more. Not gonna worry about you. Not gonna worry about you no more. Not gonna worry about you. 'Cause I've known my worth long before your ostentatious review. I'm not gonna worry about you no more. Not gonna worry about you. Nonsense, you've been spinning lies. You might be the whole world's savior, you might be its demise. Oh. But I know one day what you've been sowing, you will reap. And until then, I won't let you disrupt my sleep. 'Cause with a little love, maybe we can right our wrongs. Add a little forgiveness to our songs. You may be crazy, we may be proud. Still transformation is allowed. Whoa, whoa. Song, we'll sing it sure as we scrape off your residue. I'm not gonna worry about you. Not gonna worry about